Just walk on the other way.
State your name and occupation.
I'm Thomas Hobbes. I'm an English philosopher.
Can't hear you at all.
Should I go again?
Okay, state your name and occupation.
I'm Thomas Hobbes, an English philosopher.
What are your philosophies?
I believe that man is evil. I am a supporter of absolutism in government.
What are your views on government?
I'm a supporter of absolutism in government. I believe that it's the most efficient form of government and other parties can't interfere with the ruler's decisions.
What are your thoughts on Napoleon crowning himself emperor?
Napoleon's start as a military leader made him the perfect candidate to be the Emperor of France, and he rose to power in a time of need in France and took over.
What do you think of Napoleon's methods to rise to power?
He
Or his
saw-
strong suits?
he's a really good leader, as shown by his military genius, and he saw that many forms of government were tried and failed in France, and so he took over as emperor and made it a dictatorship.
Do you believe that Napoleon destroyed the essence of the French Revolution?
No, the people tried all these different forms of government and they all failed. And so when Napoleon took over, he still gave them what they wanted, which was not a monarchy. And he took over, conquered like half of Europe, and he made France real nice.
Okay, no further questions. Thank you.
I like to call it Montesquieu. Please state your name and occupation.
My name is Baron D. Montesquieu. I'm a French lawyer and philosopher, and I wrote The Spirit and the Laws.
What type of government do you feel works best?
I believe in separation of powers. This is the best way to protect liberty. 3 branches of government serve to check on the others to ensure that no branch has more power than the other.
And do you feel that the French Revolution aligns with your ideas from the Enlightenment?
Yes, I do feel the ideals of the French Revolution align with my Enlightenment ideas. I believe in a government with 3 branches. This government should have free will. I believe in the idea where government should be and where people should think should be more liberal and where people should think independently. This idea goes the same for the French Revolution.
And has Napoleon upheld these same ideas?
Napoleon did not uphold these same Enlightenment ideas. He believes that a dictatorship rule is best.
And how did you partake in the French Revolution?
I was elected into the Royal Society, and in 1734 I published Spirit and the Law, which describes governments throughout history and facts about Britain's limited monarchy. The British had protected themselves against tyranny by dividing the functions and powers among 3 separate branches.
How did you gain background knowledge on government, and what made you pursue a government position?
In the 1700s, France saw a flowering of Enlightenment thought. I studied the governments of Europe from Italy to England. I read about ancient and medieval Europe and learned about Chinese and Native American cultures. My sharp criticism of absolute monarchy opened the door for later debate.
Okay, no further questions.
I'd like to call Marie into that. State your name and occupation.
I'm Marie Antoinette, the last Queen of France. I'm a witness in this trial.
What type of government do you feel is best for
I
France?
believe a monarchy is best for France.
Why do you feel this form of government is best?
This form of government is best because it is one person making a decision, and decisions can be made quickly and efficiently, which is what a country needs in a period of violence.
Why do you believe that the Republic and Directory failed in France?
I believe that the Republic and Directory failed because the people were debating too much and they were not able to hold themselves together.
How do you justify the many deaths that occurred in the wars that Napoleon started?
Deaths are always expected in wars, but what was not expected was the vast amounts of land that Napoleon conquered and his military tactics. So we had many successes and should not be punished only for them.
No further questions. Thank you.
I'd like to call up Thomas Jefferson to the stand. Please state your name and occupation.
My name is Thomas Jefferson. I was the third president of the United States, and I'm widely known as the author of the Declaration of Independence.
And what are your political views?
In terms of political views, I believe that the power of the rulers should come from the people, and the rulers should have limited powers as well.
And what is your ideal rule of the people?
My ideal rule of the people is with minimal government interference, meaning that local governments should have the most power and distant governments should be limited in power.
The Enlightenment occurred from the 1600s to the 1700s. What are your views on that period?
I embrace many ideas from the Enlightenment, and I also believe that people should revolt against governments that violate their natural rights.
The French Revolution began in 1789. How did you feel about the beginning of this revolution?
I felt that the French were not yet ready for a representative government of the American type. I hoped that they would move from an absolute monarchy to a constitutional monarchy, and I also feel that the French Revolution was similar in purpose to the American Revolution.
The French Revolution was led by Napoleon Bonaparte. Do you feel that he upheld the ideas of the Enlightenment and the American ideas of revolution?
I do not feel that he upheld the Enlightenment American ideals. His ruthless and personal ambitions took away American and Enlightenment ideals from the French Revolution itself.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
I'd like to call Napoleon up to the podium. State your name and occupation.
I'm Napoleon, and I'm the Emperor of France.
Before your reign, what was the political and economic condition of France?
Oh, well, France went through a long series of governmental shifts during the Revolution. It was broken into factions of people that supported drastically different forms of government and policies. And the rule of Louis XVI didn't help them at all because he spent so much money in wars that we didn't even need to participate in.
What is your reputation among the French people?
Oh, French people love me. How couldn't they? I mean, I was a great leader, and I reunited a very loosely knit France. I made it into a tight-knit military state. They loved me so much that after I was exiled to that tiny island, it was really tiny, by Prussia, Austria, Britain, and Spain, they called me back to rule again.
Why would you say that people wanted you to desperately rule?
Well, people always gravitate towards a strong leadership, and after all the changes that occurred in government policy, they just desired to have a simple ruler that would keep them safe, healthy, and happy.
Would you say you lived up to their expectations and necessities of a strong ruler?
Well, I think all they really needed was a strong ruler. After all, you know, I saved them from the weak rule of the Directory, which had occurred after the convention of the Jacobians and Robespierre, and all this chaos. I just saved them from all of this, and I think that I really did live up to their expectations as a ruler.
Why do you feel like people should support you?
Well, I've demonstrated my aptitude for leadership and my loyalty to reign as a king. And my rule was the only reprieve from a long stretch of death, destruction, and decay of France. I offered a time of peace and prosperity for the people of France, and I pulled them out of bankruptcy, and I led them to be victorious in many battles.
Thank you. No further questions.
I'd like to call up the Duke of Wellington to the stand. Please state your name and occupation.
I'm the Duke of Wellington, a British field marshal who had strategic importance in the Battle of Waterloo.
And what is your relation with Napoleon?
We're enemies and members of opposing forces.
And why do you oppose Napoleon?
We're enemies again, and also I think he ruined France by his actions.
What were those actions?
He ruined the economy by spending too much on wars. He made women inferior in his law codes, and he censored the newspapers.
And why was it important for you to defeat Napoleon?
Well, I kind of had to because we're members of opposing forces. And it was important because after the Battle of Waterloo, it led to Napoleon being exiled.
And what type of government does England have?
England had a limited monarchy.
And is that your ideal form of government?
Yeah, I think that people should have a say in government and that the monarch should have limited power.
Okay, further questions?
Should I copy the amendment? I'd like to call it Montesquieu to stand. What type of government do you support again?
A government with 3 branches.
So do you believe in a government that institutes natural rights?
Yeah.
So are you familiar with the Napoleonic Code?
Yeah.
Would you say that this document addresses natural rights?
It does address some, but Napoleon cut down freedom of speech and freedom of press in the Napoleonic Code.
Would you consider the rights of the people to be an important consideration when ruling a country and trying to expand the empire?
Yeah.
Since the Napoleonic Code was created on the basis of natural rights, in which you proudly advocate for, wouldn't you agree that he has the best interests in mind for the people of France when writing this code?
He doesn't really apply like all natural rights in this code. Like I said before, he cut down freedom of speech and freedom of press, and he burned down churches with like people in it because he did not support religious tolerance. So it really wouldn't like didn't really like support that code.
But didn't he reopen churches that were once closed after the Enlightenment and put religious toleration in the Napoleonic Code? Napoleon modeled the Napoleonic Code after your ideas and of those of fellow Enlightenment thinkers. So would you not support someone that uses your ideas? You wouldn't?
No, I mean I would, but he doesn't really fully support that code.
Okay, no further questions. Thank you.
I'd like to call Marie Antoinette up to the stand. So Ms. Antoinette, how old were you when you took the throne?
14.
So being that you were 14 years old, do you consider it's considered a teenager, is it not? So
is.
how is it appropriate for a teenager to take control of a country and be expected to thrive and meet the needs of the people?
Well, that's what was expected of many people during our time. So it's just, it was what we were taught from the time that we were born.
Yeah, but shouldn't teenagers be doing things, not taking control of a country? How could you expect? Like, what ideas from the Enlightenment did you carry out during your reign?
I used whatever I was taught by the people that my parents had to remove.
So what type of leader do you think Napoleon was?
He was an absolute monarch. He was a totalitarian.
So what is the difference between a totalitarian leader and an absolute monarch like your husband?
Well, there is.
They both took control of all aspects of life, did they not? And not support the French Revolution?
They did, but Napoleon also provided many freedoms for the people and also gave more power to them. It was a limited monarchy.
Well, with Napoleon, he took control as a totalitarian leader. This means that he controlled phases, all aspects of life, including political and economic and social aspects.
He did.
So then what's the difference? This whole point of the trial is to say whether or not Napoleon ruined the essence of the French Revolution. The whole point of the French Revolution was to support loyalty, fraternity, and equality. He basically was the same exact ruler as your husband.
He was different though. He did not take complete control because he did provide the people to have some control over what they did.
And what are those things that he did?
He reopened churches, so he provided religion.
How did he reopen them once he burned them down?
He did not burn down every church, so there were still churches reopened, and religious tolerance was supported throughout his rule
And how did he support religious tolerance?
by allowing people to decide for themselves which religion they would like to either become a part of or support.
I'd like to call it Ms. Duke of Wellington. What was your position in the Battle of Waterloo, and on what side were you serving?
I was a British Field Marshal, which is the highest rank. I was serving for Britain.
Is it true that you, like Napoleon, had both served in the military and in a political position?
Yeah.
Being a general in the Battle of Waterloo, you had said that Napoleon ruined the economy and he spent too much money on wars. So did you not spend money on wars?
Well, I wasn't in charge of spending money.
Right, but you were a general, so you weren't given the go-ahead to. Sure.
Yeah, he didn't spend money on me.
Okay. Being a military general, is it true that the main motive of partaking in wars is to further advance your country and to help the people of your country?
Yes.
Napoleon is seen as one of the greatest military leaders in history. Being a military leader yourself, isn't it true that your main job is to win and make your country greater in many fields?
Yeah, that's what I did.
Isn't it also true that Napoleon expanded the French Empire greatly and defeated the mighty Austrian forces and created a law code for his people? No further questions, thank you.
I'd like to call Napoleon up to the stand. So Napoleon, what does a revolution mean to you?
A revolution is a strive for progression and improvement in a society.
So would you agree that a revolution should integrate the ideas of the people, correct? And how have you done this?
How have I done that?
Yeah.
Well, I do believe that it should integrate the ideals of the people, and I have done that. I established a national bank, religious tolerance. I mean, after all, it is improvement, which is all relative to whatever it was previously. So previously it was in chaos, and I brought in religious tolerance after the rule of the Jacobins, who established some sort of cult of reason. So I would say that I did establish some of the ideals of the people. That's why they loved me.
So the French Revolution was all based on the idea of freedom, brotherhood, and equality, was it not? But a revolution also is defined as a fundamental change in government. How is the change from an absolute monarchy the same as your totalitarian rule in France?
Well, who said that we were changing from an absolute monarchy? We were changing from the Directory, which was a weak democracy. I saved them from that.
But the absolute monarchy was the same, was the rule of Louis XVI, which you were basically the same ruler as.
So are you asking how I progressed from that?
Yeah, how that French Revolution is defined as a fundamental change in government. You're basically the same type of government as Louis XVI.
The people were happy with me as a ruler, and I think that's...
They were happy because they were vulnerable. They had gone through many phases of government, and they just needed a leader that would help them. They were sick and
And I
tired
did.
of... Okay. But how'd you help them as you got defeated in the Battle of Waterloo after being exiled, and also the catastrophe in Russia that killed hundreds and thousands of French people? You're, so to speak, a good military leader.
As a good military leader, I led them through many victorious battles, and I think one loss shouldn't be regarded as
More than one,
such.
just two. And if you're such a good
Let me
military...
speak, woman. I'm the
Oh
Now, religious toleration was very important to the people.
That's why you burned down churches.
I established a national bank for them. I led them out of
After you
bankruptcy.
spend millions of money on wars.
I think that the national bank that I established far outweighed the money that I spent on wars, because after the reign of King Louis XVI, as you said, he spent money on wars, but I was able to re-earn that money.
How were you able to re-earn that money?
I organized the funds in a national bank of France, and then also the wars that I led. I also conquered a lot of lands, and I would take their resources.
There's one less.
We didn't do two.
We didn't cross-examine Tahani.
You didn't cross the
We cross-examined Tahani.
Oh,
I didn't like, I only
yeah, I
did
only
two.
did two. I thought you said you only did.
Oh, Donnie.
What is your position again?
I was the third president of the United States and the author of the Declaration of Independence.
So, being the author of the Declaration of Independence, is it not true that you wanted the people to prosper?
Yes.
It's true. Okay. Did you take some of the, since Napoleon was the creator of the Napoleonic Code, did you not take some of his ideas and implement them in the Declaration of Independence? You had the first law code? No?
Not necessarily.
No. But you wanted the freedoms of your people to be represented equally?
Yes.
Okay. So, the Declaration of Independence was formed on the basis of creating rights, natural rights for your people. So you believe in natural rights?
Yes.
So, knowing the history of the Napoleonic Code and Napoleon himself, do you not agree that he tried to implement natural rights? He put them in the Napoleonic Code?
I believe you did that.
Okay. Did you, in the Declaration of Independence, is it true that the people wanted to separate from something they did not believe in? They wanted freedom for themselves? Okay. So, is it not true that Napoleon created like an out, like a way for people to get out from like under the reign of terror and Louis XVI that served before him?
Yes.
Okay, no further questions, thank you.
I like to call Thomas Hobbes. Okay, so you say you're a supporter of absolutism, right? But as a philosopher, shouldn't you be wanting what's best for the people?
It's absolutely best for the people.
But how is it best for the people if they're taking control of all aspects of life?
Absolutism doesn't have to take control of all aspects of life. For example, Napoleon gave them freedom of religion. So
Napoleon wasn't an absolute monarch. He was a
He's
so
an absolute ruler. The dictator is an absolute ruler. He's not to be a king.
Yeah, but even though he took control of, like, he gave them religious freedom, he still took control of other aspects of life.
Not all aspects of life.
Yeah.
You want to change your definition.
Yeah, but you say you're a supporter of absolutism.
Yeah. Absolutism is Napoleon. It's good. I'm a supporter. I support him.
Okay.
Answer the question. I don't know the question.
But the French Revolution was all about freedom, equality, and brotherhood. So how did Napoleon support that?
Well, freedom. Freedom of religion right there. You got equality.
He oppressed women. How was that being equal?
It's a matter of opinion. Also, if you look at what France was doing before Napoleon, and none of those governments worked out at all. So, if Napoleon hadn't come along, what would happen to France? It would just vanish.
Yeah, but then what happened after Napoleon left? There was some despair.
We don't know what happened after Napoleon yet. We're at the trial.
Oh yeah, sorry. No further questions.
Okay, we're gonna go back to 2, and we're gonna cross-examine. Should I come over?
Oh, yeah.
A, let A go first.
All right. I'd like to call for Robespierre.
Mike's getting serious.
So,
We're best friends.
do you believe that your actions in the Estates General upheld the principles and values of the French Revolution?
Yeah.
Can you explain why?
Let's just stop for a second. Okay. Can you repeat your question?
Do you
Well, because like I went against it because because I was like fighting.
Is that all?
Yeah.
Okay. So, yesterday you said you were against the violence caused by Napoleon, but when you began your revolution, you senselessly murdered more than from 20 to 50,000 people. How come when Napoleon does the violence, you're against it, but when you do it, you're completely fine with it?
Because mine was positive violence. I was killing people that were doing wrong things. Now Napoleon was like, bam, and came in and was like, but I was like, I was just like, no.
So, wait, explain to me this. So, you're against a totalitarian regime, yet you, under your horrible regime, oppressed people who had ideas that were different than yours. Is that no different than the absolute monarch that came before you?
No, it's totally different. Okay. Me, what I did, like I was against Napoleon. So I was like, if he wants to fight, if he wants to play dirty, I'll play dirty. So like I went back and I was just like, but I know.
We want to play dirty.
It was bad.
Okay, well, so you consider yourself a person of the people, right? That you wanted to help the people. Don't you think the stability and social advancement that Napoleon brought was a benefit to your cause? I mean, you are for the...
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so then you're not really against Napoleon, are you?
But I am against.
But you just said that he brought economic stability. So does that mean that
Okay.
you actually
Just because I
are...
don't like him doesn't mean he's like bringing good stuff to
Oh,
me.
so it's a personal reason.
No, we didn't like have like a cat fight or anything.
So then how can you say you're for the people if you don't approve of the economic and social stability that Napoleon brought?
Because Napoleon.
Are you sure that you're not just trying to be a power hog and take all the power for yourself during your power in the
No,
Estates General?
I'm not
And you were just
selfish.
another corrupt
I'm not
leader?
selfish!
Oh my god.
I was trying to help because all the people are like stupid because they yeah, the people are stupid. You're stupid, okay?
Thanks.
Yeah, because they had years of bad governments, then they were
You're wrong.
horrible, and then they were just like, oh my god, snap, snap, here he is.
Look whose government
You know, it's really
collapsed. Look whose government
let's fight.
collapsed. Look whose
Yeah,
government collapsed.
Because me,
Your government
I
collapsed.
couldn't keep it all together. I was just like, I'm just
So you just proved your government failed. That's all. That's all.
Jacuzzi slayed it.
Call witness Voltaire to the stand, but before I question, I would just like to remind us of our purpose in the stance of the trial, that we're trying to prove that the Reign of Terror, the Great Fear, the guillotining of Louis XVI, and the storming of the Bastille all reflected revolutionary forces that were out of control, leading a nation to further depression, destitution, and political uncertainty. Now, will Voltaire please come to the stand?
Yes, ma'am. He's getting wild. He's getting savage.
Okay. Can you please restate your ideas of the Enlightenment?
Well, my philosophies for the Enlightenment consists of a separation of church and state, so the government should not have any say in how religion is practiced. We have freedom of speech, which I think that is a very key principle in maintaining a strong government, and freedom of religion itself, so people have religious toleration, they can practice whatever and whomever they desire.
Okay. If you support freedom of speech, how do you rationalize the actions taken during the French Revolution? For example, people were murdered and guillotined for speaking against the radical groups as well as those who were in favor of the monarchy.
I never said that the actions against the people were right. I never said that they were justified, but I support what I believe in, freedom of speech. I, too, have been sent to the Bastille myself because of speaking out against the government. So the government could do what they want at that time, but given that freedom of speech itself was prohibited, I was totally against it.
Am I wrong in saying that your cause is to prove that the revolution was a good thing and helped the people?
I feel that the revolution was a very good thing because once you think of it, in the long run, when Napoleon became emperor, he set up his code, the Code of Napoleon, which gave religious tolerance as one of the main points of his French code.
But what about the acts such as the Reign of Terror? Those were terrible acts that were committed throughout the French Revolution, and people were murdered for speaking out against the government.
Oh, absolutely. But again, with governments itself, the government at the time was able to be in total control and eliminate those who were against the government by speaking out, such as me. I was not dead during the Reign of Terror, but given the fact that the government was banning the say against the government, that goes to show you that government should be able to listen to their people.
But Napoleon implemented censorship, and he took away a lot of freedom of speech. So how can you support him?
I support the fact that Napoleon did initially listen to his people. He was the one that set up the national banks. He was the one that set up his code that gave people, some human rights.
But not all of them. And you support many rights that you support were not upheld by the Code of Napoleon.
That is very true. But
So how can you support him?
You gotta wrap it up.
Okay.
One of my largest focuses for the Enlightenment was the freedom of religion and the separation of church and state. So that right there is a huge piece of my beliefs. 2/3 of what I believe.
Okay. No further questions.
Before we go to the last witness, jury members, make sure you've tallied up, and when I ask you for your rubric, you're gonna put a star, and you're gonna hand me the one that has the most points, either A or B, and that's how we're gonna determine the verdict. Okay, so go ahead. And I'm limiting you to 3 questions, because otherwise we're not gonna have time to read the verdict.
Can I
Quick.
go again?
Shh, quick.
I'd like to call her up to stand. All right, so your role was very similar to that of Robespierre during the French Revolution. So let me ask you this. Why did you call for the death of the king?
Well, I called for the death of the king because he was a good ruler to the French people.
Okay, now Napoleon, who later came along and brought stability and economic prosperity to France, actually did quite a good job and fixed all the problems that the king presented. So you called for the death of the king because you said he did many bad things. Napoleon, who did all these good things, why would you be against him?
Well, because me and my group support democracy. We don't support like a single ruler, like a totalitarian ruler or monarch.
Okay, but you were a Jacobin and your democracy consisted of oppressing other people and political dissidents.
Can you repeat the question?
You say your group supports a democracy, but your version of a democracy involved executing political dissidents and people who disagreed with you. Not much of a democracy, if you ask me.
Well, that's true, but like unlike the totalitarian rulers, we would allow people like. Hold on, repeat the question.
Time. Next. Time. You gotta cut it, sorry. I think you proved your point.
I would like to call on Bruce to fire. Stand.
Tear him down.
Can you please briefly restate your ideas of the Enlightenment?
My name is Jean-Jean Rousseau, and I believe that people, when they are born, are innocent and not inclined to do any harm to anyone else, and that society corrupts them.
Am I correct in saying that you believe that the government should be based on the general will of the people?
Yes.
So if you believe this, then why should others be persecuted for their views, and how could you condone the violent behaviors against the people who oppose your views?
Because the people who are persecuted, eventually in the long run, it is for the greater good and it can benefit people.
But if you believe that the people have their say, then how could they be persecuted for what they want?
Because, as I said, it could be better for other people in the long run, the majority of people.
One of your philosophies is the idea of, if a dictatorship does not have the representation of the people, then how can you support the claim of Napoleon?
Because he had to serve the people.
But he didn't base every one of his ideals off of the general will.
Because not everything you do has to support the people. Just as long as it helps them in the long run and it's for the greater good, it's okay.
No further questions?
Okay.
Napoleon, please come to the front. Hurry up. Hurry up, Napoleon. We, the jury, find Napoleon innocent.
Yes, Napoleon. All right, good job by both groups. Excellent. It was